Welcome to Navarero's online showcase video. Today we are back at the intersection to begin with. I just can't get enough of this area. It's fun. Fun to look at, kinda like how the different curves have turned out, but it's also such a mess to navigate, and it got even messier after the last video because I added the connection that I talked about the last time, going from the smelter right through here and into the sawmill entrance. So this is what I needed for my new train that I assembled. That allows me to take the supplies up to the iron mine and then the iron ore back down from there and then straight from the smelter to the sawmill in order to refill the stake cars again. This may not be too long for the world because I had another idea on how to expand the entire thing even further. But right now I'm even still just in the experimental phase about trying to figure out if I like to do the operations like this to begin with. It feels a bit more complicated, a few more things to wrap my head around, but it's also doing so in a fun way. Overall, one thing that I really like about this is I prefer having the cars that I'm about to load to be closer to the engine. So I can just disconnect all the cars that are going to stay empty anyways, so I don't have to deal with the inertia from the dead weight, so to speak. And that means that at some point the stay cars need to be up front, at some point the hoppers need to be up front, and finding an elegant way to do the switching to flip it over. Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but I can definitely manage. So yeah, right now the train is over here and I have a few more things to talk about regarding the junction before we actually go to the smelter. First up, I wasn't joking when I talked about this being a mess to navigate, because I had it multiple times already where I completely messed up where to go through here. Wanted to go from the starting area down south, ended up in the station here. Wanted to go from the smelter with some bulkhead cars to the logging camp for cordwood resupplies. Ended up in the sawmill. So I may need to put up some signs if this doesn't get better. There are a few signs that signs might be necessary. But I just don't like how actually getting to the rideable sign works out. It's kind of weird. It's really annoying having to navigate the menus, going into the tiny drop down and then having to type in the text before being able to place down everything. Would have been better if it was like Minecraft. Just get the sign and every time you put it down, maybe have the option to keep what you wrote on the last sign, but also just being able to put in the new text just like that. Hopefully some stuff like that arrives with maybe the UI update, but right now it's just very inconvenient. Also, another thing that's highly inconvenient is that besides all of the issues navigating this, that already made it clear that I should have gone with just consecutive regular wires instead of this whole overlapping junction kind of thing. The game still seems to have some issues with the crossover pieces. I had multiple derailments trying to do some supply runs and, well, thankfully I make sure to save every time I go and leave the station with a train. So every time I fill up a train, I put on a quick save in order to not have to deal with too much of a progression loss if something happens. So that definitely helped out quite a bit, but it's still far from ideal and I hope this gets fixed soon. Doesn't even seem to be affecting the actual engines, but ever so often the cars seem to snack up on something and then derail at least half the train. Might only be the 45-degree junctions, but hey, I have like 3 of them right here. So it's not ideal. It's not great. But it works some of the time, so it's not completely unusable either. Anyways, let's talk about the smelter station. And this is gonna be a long one because the station already starts right here. I wanted to have another epically long runaround for the cordwood deliveries, and according to my calculations, for the amount of cars that I had in mind, I needed something slightly over 600 meters. So we are close to 650 meters around here, and yeah, that means that there is a really long dual track, and I absolutely love the way it looks. However, let's talk about how to unload iron ore to begin with, and for that we need to be on the left-hand track. This one will also take you to the collection area for the output product of the smelter, and yeah, for all of that we also have another runaround over here, which is slightly shorter than the one for the cordwood. Staying on the left here gets us onto this curvy track going around the entire back of the industry before getting straight towards the platform here. And going even further beyond that, well, the only thing we are going to encounter from here is a stopper, so maybe not go through here too quickly. So my idea here was that I wanted to not turn this entire thing into a balloon loop, not like something like the iron ore mine, which was alright, but well, with some of the stations I still want to turn the trains around instead of just being able to drive through and go any direction from there. So yeah, that was easy enough to do, but then I also needed to take care that I actually had everything I needed to turn the trains around. And that, generally speaking, means that I need to have a runaround track and a turntable. So first up, I would disconnect the train from the the engine from the rest of the train on one of the runarounds, turn the engine around, and then drive it past to get to the other end of the train, and then drive off where I came from. And yeah, while the whole cordwood ordeal here definitely needed its own runaround for how long it needs to be, I at least wanted to use one turntable for everything. That was easy enough to do for the cordwood and the supply area, but the iron ore gave me a bit of a headache here. So in the end, the iron ore platform is on one of the sides, the collection area on the other side, and in between we kinda have everything going on with the cordwood. And once everything is filled up with cordwood cars, well, there's always gonna be something on this track for the most part, meaning that just going straight over to get to the runaround track and the turntable wasn't really an option. So I couldn't go over those two tracks right here, I needed to go around them. And then it turned out just going around the back and doing the whole 180 there was the more straightforward way of dealing with this. The other one would have been to make another switch at the end of the cordwood runaround, but that would also involve every time I wanted to do a simple iron ore delivery. Starting out over here, if I had another switch, it would go to the right, and that would be the track that I would need to follow to get towards the iron ore platform. Then stop the train, empty all the hoppers, come back here in reverse, then go onto the left track again, go to the actual runaround, then turn the engine around on that, and once all of that is done, I could finally come back here and be facing the right direction. So it would have been a whole lot of back and forth for really not much reason, and therefore I thought going around the back of the industry was a bit more straightforward and efficient here. Same with having the switch going into the iron ore area on the not on the very end of the runaround, but actually kind of part of one of the sidings here. It is a bit weird, but at least the track over here is long enough that even if I come down here with my 18-car hopper train, I can still comfortably park all of that onto this track without blocking off any of the switches, meaning that I can just, after delivering everything, coming back through here in reverse, remove the engine, put it on the turntable, and do the whole turnaround thing without too much of a hassle. So this is all working out pretty well, and well, due to how you get into this area and how you leave again, while it's not too different from what I did on all the other playthroughs, I mean, the whole cordwood setup is pretty much identical. I'm even using the same engine to deal with all the unloading and that kind of stuff. Overall, it worked out a bit different just how everything gets into this area. So that was still pretty fun to figure out. And besides all of that, with the turntable, we also have a bit of a supply area. The water tower is more for the helper engine to be refueled. I may need to add another, I don't know, just a little firewood depot or something eventually in order to refill the helper engine, but right now, I don't know. If I come through here with a wood burner, I can just take some of the firewood from that engine and put it into the helper engine, and that should also be alright, so I only really need water. And for the most part, this engine is really only there so that the engine of the cordwood train can be parked in here once the cordwood has been delivered, and it can stay in there until all the cars are emptied and the train needs to be reassembled again. But since we are talking about the cordwood so much already, let's get into the new engines. There are actually 4 of them, and they all kind of have something to do with cordwood deliveries. 3 of them are helper engines, and we are going to go through them in order of in which we encounter them here. The numbers are a bit different, but that should be alright. So, starting out here, we have Cordelia, number 5. Of course, a class 48, which I'm using to pull in all the cars to drop off the cordwood. So it's always gonna be 3 cars at the time, as per usual. Working out pretty well, tried and tested, and I don't really know what else to do here. I mean, I could build a bridge over the platform, but that would be kinda cheaty. I think as far as legitimate ways are concerned, depending on whether you count just having another track to go by here and unloading cars onto another set of cars and then onto the platform, I think this is one of the better ways of handling this anyways, and I'm still pretty happy about it. Although I gotta say, I'm kind of also getting tired of doing this all the time, so if it was up to me, I would love to just switch the platform for the iron ore and the cordwood so that the cordwood would be drive-through and the iron ore would be a bit of back and forth. Because for such a high volume good, it's annoying. Anyway, so much about that engine. In grand total, we have 24 cordwood cars right here, so that gives a bit of an impression, hopefully. Let me just get into fly mode again. This is gonna be a bit of a walk otherwise. So right now, the train is pretty much just a third of the overall length it should be in the end. And right here, we are going to take a look at the last engine that I bought. This is a Twin C. It's called Lakeshore Chaser. And this is my dedicated cordwood engine. So this is only here for delivering cordwood from the logging camp to the smelter and then go back to the logging camp. And Lakeshore Chaser because part of the route is going just along the shoreline of the lake and around the water well to the logging camp, coming back here. I was considering getting the class 70 again as on my last Lake Valley attempt. However, back then the smelter was somewhere over here, the logging camp in the same position as it is right now, so the overall trip was maybe half of what we have here. Just about that. So for the full length trip going from pretty much one end of the map to another, I want to have something a bit quicker. So the Twin C doing all of that and could be happy about it. Also, one thing I want to ask, did the tender always have these large numbers on it? I don't remember. I always thought the actual company name or whatever you put on here would be somewhere around here, or did I just misremember this? I may need to go back to one of my older episodes and take a look at that, because I don't remember it being like this, but this might just be me. Anyways, love the engine anyways, and it's It's a powerful one, it's a fast one, and pretty much the one that I need for the job. Should be plenty good enough to deal with all the cars once that is assembled. There isn't really too much of incline here. Then again, on the MIA playthrough, 1% incline with 48 cars was already quite the challenge, and this one may need to overcome 0.5%. I hope it's alright, but who knows. So before we finally talk about that piece of track going off in the distance right there, let's talk about the rest of the engines, since we are already on that topic. I hope I won't forget about the connection because that's kind of important, but yeah, first of all I want to introduce to you guys the assembler. This is a Porter 042, and I'm basically just using this one again as I did on the other playthrough. I think I talked about this whole idea on that as well. Just that every time I get a new set of cars, like maybe 24 or up to 48 bulkhead cars for cold food deliveries, I don't need to come in here with a road engine and just attach them to the end all the time, which would make that progressively harder because of the train becoming longer and longer over time. I can make it easier myself. I just park the engine somewhere in that direction and then just push all of the cars from the back using this engine right into that engine. So I assemble the train basically the other way around. And that's definitely a lot more convenient, and I kind of wish the devs would open up the back of the starting area on the other map as well, because this makes such a difference and it's just so convenient. Can really recommend this, at least on this map. On the other one, of course it doesn't work. I remember seeing a post on Reddit at some point where somebody just put down another trick on the side which acted as a bit of a ramp, so they could just take one car at a time, put it onto that, and then it would just roll down, and that would be an easy way to assemble a full train without anything else, but I kinda didn't want to do it in a way like that. If you love playing the game like that, more power to you. It's a really it's a creative way of dealing with this and a very convenient one at that, but I kind of want to keep the cars on the track for as long as I can until the game itself decides to derail them. So the last one that we need to talk about is at the logging camp, and this was of course bought in order to deal with loading up all the cordwood. And for this one I went with another coal burner, which is the new Ferris and Cliffhouse engine. Ha, remembered the name. And yeah, what can I say? It's an engine that I want to have as a bit of a helper, although it having actual plows over here and not the stepping boards makes that whole thing a bit awkward, but it's alright. It would also be a pretty good engine for road-going operations due to its top speed. And overall, the tractive effort isn't too high. It's, what is it, like 4.5 thousand pound-feet? Or force pound force, whatever. One of those. I'm trying to learn this stuff, but it's really not easy for myself. Yeah, I kind of thought it would be performing a slight bit better in pushing operations, but it's alright. It feels a tiny bit sluggish when trying to get going, but it works out pretty well, and I always wanted to have another option for a tank engine with not too much tractive effort as a cheaper, hopefully a bit smaller than the Class 48 helper or yard goat engine, that kind of thing. This definitely does some of it, and it's also kind of a cool engine itself. One thing that I noticed that I found a bit weird, and apparently this is something that people would have had to deal with, at least as far as one of the moderators on the official Discord is concerned. I found out that this one actually has two sand domes, and the one up front is just below the bell, or the bell is mounted on top of it, which would make loading this thing hella awkward, but apparently this is something that people would need to deal with, just pushing the bell out of the way. And I tried to find some information on this, but the only thing that I could confirm is that actually, yes, the bell on the real engine is of course on top of this dome, but I couldn't really see if maybe the dome itself would have been used as a steam dome instead of having a second sending dome, the back one of course being over here. So yeah, I don't know. Feels a bit weird, but apparently this is correct, and it's kind of cool. I don't really intend on using the sender anyways, so what do I care? Besides all of that, apart from this engine being a bit too expensive for what it is, it's a pretty decent one. Really like it, and of course this one is the number 6. So we have, oh god, I think number 4 was the assembler, then I had the class 48, then I had this one, and then I had the Twin C. I think that's all of the ducks in the order right now. Anyways, let's go back to the smelter and talk about that other track going off. So for this one, flying mode is engaged again. So after the whole thing about the runaround here, we have the option to either go back to the multi-junction of madness or stick to the right here. And this is a track that I always kind of wanted to try out, but I didn't really know how much it would work out. This right here is a 3% incline. Just going up over here and then onto this weird area, and you can already tell where this is going. This is a shortcut directly from the smelter to the freight depot. And this would of course be very useful for whenever I want to deliver some rails. And while I knew that this whole or a similar track like this has been shown off in one of the trailers for the anniversary update with this map, this is a pain. This is just such a pain to build. I mean, over here it's so uneven, it's tough to even do anything. And coming back down here, I think this is 8%. The lower part here is 6%, so maybe I could have evened it out to 7 or something. But even if I didn't, I would need to go basically pretty much straight to go over this part. Because trying to follow these contours again, it would just throw you off and you would just end up with a massive bridge over here, looking more like a roller coaster than any real railroad. Then again, I saw some of the railroad bridges that really look like roller coasters if I didn't have any other choice. But yeah, this one is another option to go down here. And the way it works is pretty much a one-way ticket. So to get back on the map right now, to show you guys what I really had in mind here and the thing that I alluded to regarding my iron ore and iron mine supply train. The thing that I can now do, having the shortcut over here, instead of having to go around in order to get from the smelter to the freight depot, since I'm having stake cars on the train already, I can take supplies from the sawmill through the intersection up to the iron ore mine already, then load up the hoppers with the iron ore, come all the way back down and go to the smelter. The way it works right now, or how I've done it before, was then just take all the empty cars to the sawmill again, and yeah, that's definitely less of a trip than taking fully loaded stake cars up here, fully loaded hoppers down here, then run the empty hoppers back up, then the empty stake cars back down. But yeah, instead of doing just this little triangle right here, I could actually now also do it as follows. Take the loaded stake cars with the supplies to the iron ore mine, take the hoppers back down. From the smelter everything will be empty, but I can also load up the rails then take this little shortcut to the freight depot, unload the rails, and then only for the trip from the freight depot to the sawmill, everything will be empty. So that's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's everything but straightforward compared to just running from one to the other back and forth all the time, but it's kind of interesting. So pretty happy to try this one out. I don't think I'll be unloading rails every time, so I guess having the other connection in the intersection to go straight to the sawmill from here is still pretty useful. But yeah, nice to have this one as an option now. And I mean, this track is kind of ridiculous, but it's also allowing me to just go through here and then straight ahead and back to the sawmill. Although going towards all of that, there is actually now another thing that we can visit, and you know what, I want to include it here, and I'm just gonna try and make it short. I built another yard. And this is now my new main yard, and lo and behold, it's kinda cool. So we have a main line going over here on the left, allowing you to bypass everything. I also made it so that you can go into the resupply part of the engine supply area from the main line and then just refill the coaling tower or the firewood depot. That's also something similar to what I've done on the other end at the logging camp. Completely forgot about all of that. But yeah, that's one way to deal with all of that. And then we just have a decently sized yard over here. 6 tracks in total, plus another bypass track that also gets you towards all the rest of the stuff. I have a few stake cars over here. These are the ones that I got rid of in order to have the ratio at the other train work out. I think what I'll do is I'll just buy a few more stake cars and then I'll have a separate train to deal with anything coming out of the smelter over there. And then if I keep the whole train as it is right now in that place, then I'll have 2 separate ones to do different things with. I also have a decent amount of EBT hoppers, or I think that's what they are called. I forgot which one or which goods they can actually load the less of. I knew it was 10 for either the iron ore and the coal, and only 8 for the other. I thought it was 10 iron ore and 8 coal. It turned out to be the opposite, and therefore, after I already had everything bought, I decided to look into the wiki, notice that I've kind of messed up there. So I keep this around for once I get to the coal mine. They will find their use, but it's not right now. And this is why, for the time being, those are just parked around here. But yeah, that's pretty much everything about this. We have another connection over here going back onto the main line. And there's also an option to get into the station from the freight depot. I think that will be more useful for every time if I come through here, deliver something to the freight depot, and then don't really need the train anymore. I can just come back in here and then use it like that. Also, I finally decided to have a full turntable set up here for any engine that I get. Right now, most of those engines are either, yard engines, so they are never gonna be over here, or pretty much in use for the road engines, apart from a Montezuma right now. But that's in the other yard for the whole supply area for the wheat farm and all of that. So right now, this one is pretty empty and abandoned, but I have it set up for the future, so yay. Eventually I'll be using this. Eventually I'll be getting more engines and all of that. I think I still have enough money. Oh yeah, we're looking pretty well on that end. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for this episode. Let me know what you think about this. Just the usual outdoor. I'm kind of getting stuck on some stuff today. The week has been a bit crazy so far. So thanks for watching. Have a good one. See you next time and goodbye.